Jack, okay, perfect. I will use the time while Jack runs back here to do a quick introduction about myself. As you can see, I work for Salesforce. The characters give me away. Thank you so much. I have to confess at the beginning, when I joined Salesforce last year, I said, wow, these characters, now I'm in love with them. My favorite is Astro, by the way. How did I come to Salesforce? I came via an acquisition last year. I was part of Level Jump, a Toronto-based startup that had an incredible exit being acquired by Salesforce. So I was very fortunate to come over with the team. It was a little bit of a jump. We were a company of 30 people, and now we're a little bit more than that, a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I am actually a systems engineer. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut or a pilot, but I come from Venezuela, and we do not have a space program down there. We barely have some, very old F-14s. So it was not going to be my career. So I said, what can I do that kind of gets me close to that? And this is the 1990s, and I wanted to do something that was leading edge, and systems engineering was something that was starting. So I said, why not? So I went into systems engineering thinking I was going to work in supply chain. That was my thing. I actually did. Way back in the day, for the kids in the room, we didn't have the cloud. We had to actually go and implement software in some very big machines, Gail, I think you remember that with me. Remember that one? You had to go to the server and install the software, and there was a whole issue. The cloud did not exist back then. Then the world was going to end in Y2K. Right? It was it. That was all about Y2K. And I had an opportunity in that company to join the sales team. And I remember telling the sales leader, I have no idea how to sell. I said, no problem. You know the product, you know how to use it, we'll teach you how to sell. Mind you, this was back in Venezuela, complete different ballgame. No sales methodology. You lead with price. This is completely different. Yes, you lead with, if you were going to sell in Latin America, you lead with price. So here's something for you. And then, I worked in sales for a long, long time. Came to Canada in 2006 and was very fortunate to continue my career in tech sales. I worked for Canadian companies like OpenText out of Waterloo. My Waterloo people, yes, Waterloo. Worked for a few startups. I worked at ClearBank, now called ClearCo, with Michelle Romano. I worked at Bonfire, also out of Kitchener, and I worked with Level Jump, and now I am here. So just a little bit to have a little bit of experience all over the place. What am I going to talk about today? We're going to talk about using technology to drive sales productivity. And I am going to go over some things because, surprise, surprise, I am not talking tech today. Yes, I work for a tech company. But I'm not going to tell you, run outside and let's go all buy a tech stack. No. I'm going to start a few chapters back in the book. We're going to start with a story. We're going to talk about the productivity dilemma. And I'm going to show you today what I call the analog to digital framework. Where should you start before you even go and ask for those dollars to buy any type of tech stack nowadays? And then we're going to talk about a happy ending. Once upon a time, there was a new fresh enabler who came into a company, and everybody had an opinion. We want conversational insights. We want a CRM. We want a sales productivity tool. We want a cadence tool. We want everything. Everybody had an opinion. And this poor fresh enabler was drowning in everybody's opinion and what should be more important. And this poor sales enabler started to go out and validate vendors and understand and what is happening. And then you're trapped into this whole feature function because you really do not know what business problem you as the enabler are solving for the business. Mind you, that's the seller should do that homework too, but what are you solving? Let's talk about where are we in the world right now. Enablement, even though we are in these economic times, in the last 3 years, we have seen enablement functions grow in 300% to what we had when enablement was, we were still not cool. Now we're like the popular kids of the classroom, right? We went from being that little corner table to being, the center table of the cafeteria. Did you know there are 736 software vendors just for the tech stack of the sales team? We did research on this. I find it unbelievable. It's overwhelming. I think there's somebody on LinkedIn who makes this big, like, giant bubble. You know, we've seen it, of the amount and names of sales tech stack that there is. There's always somebody coming to solve a new sales problem every day. And there is spending. There is still spending. I know that again, the world is going to end and COVID hit us all, but did you see the records of e-commerce last week with Black Friday? I mean, I find it unbelievable, but it's true. The world is going to keep going. People are going to still buying. We're still going to spend money. It is going to happen. So this is kind of like the panorama. But what are the challenges? We have costs that are increasing, supply chains that are happening, risks and inflation and elections and politics and war and the World Cup. Like, there's so many things happening all the time. And we made an analysis and we determined that 91% of the CFOs expect their margins to decline, meaning the CFO is going to be much more careful of where we spend the money. So make sure you follow, what Gail taught us today about how to do your business case, because it's going to matter. So what are we going to do, right? What do we do with all the asks, all what the sales team is asking from us, all the things and the inputs that we have? All this is overwhelming, right? What are we going to do? I'm going to invite you all to take like 2 steps back, because technology needs process to really solve the problem. You cannot solve the problem with technology alone. And I am a person who comes from a tech background. You do not solve it. It does not matter how you put it. You will not solve the problem. You need the process first, okay? This is where I talk about analog to digital. And this is the framework that I like to follow. First, and I'm going to expand on each one of these, gather requirements, map the process, get results, and iterate. And let's talk a little bit about each one of them. The requirements are very simple. It's something that you would do, as we have been talking all morning, when we're talking about structuring a team, gathering for a proposal, when we're talking about, being onboarding enablers. Who, where, when, what is the process that we're trying to fix? Examples. Somebody tells you, go out there and buy me a tool to improve how we get leads, right? The outreach, the sales lofts, any of those. Ask all these questions to your BDR team, the BDR manager, the BDRs themselves, revenue operations, the sales VP. Like, what is really happening? What are get close to the numbers. What are we looking to increase? We've been talking about business outcomes all day. I love this, because we really need to learn how to talk about business outcomes. What do we need? Oh, we need to increase the conversion rate from lead to opportunity. We need to increase that from 15 to 20%. Okay, now we know what we need to do. For whom is this important? And how are they doing it today? It's like doing a discovery call. It's exactly the same thing you're teaching your reps, is do a thorough discovery. Then let's map the process and let's start thinking about how are we going to do it. Somebody spoke about progress, not perfection, right? I think it was in the panel. We spoke about progress, not perfection. I was so with you. Very much, there's a book called Black Box Thinking from Matthew Syed, where he speaks about this and also about marginal gains. Just do it. So what do I think? What am I saying with this? Let's go back to the example of the BDR team. You do not need an outreach or another tool to start doing this. Get your sellers to understand how to manage a lead pipeline. Put it in an Excel sheet. Get them to understand how they move people throughout their lead pipeline in the same Excel sheet. Understand what are the issues, how are they converting, where are they wasting time, what do they need in that process. And then think about, if I were to add a technology today, will they adopt it and how? Because people, you might think that some of these tools are the best, and they are. They are. But if nobody uses them, it's like, having a beautiful car in the garage because it is standard and you don't know how to drive it. It is not going to work for anybody's purpose. And most important, look for those gaps. And that follows in every part of the process. Conversational insight tools. That's such a big one. We were talking about it yesterday. These tools like Gong, like Chorus, like Einstein Conversational Insights, they're amazing. The amount of technology behind these tools is impressive. But what are you going to do with that AI if nobody wants to use them? So I'm going to give you an example of something I did, right? We used to record calls in dial pad, and we had an MP3. That's it. We had a Google Sheet, and people had to put their call there, and we had a scorecard that was based on a Word document. What we created was the habit and the process of how to do call listening, call scoring, and then a group validation of all that. When we mapped that process very well, when the time came and in that moment I bought Gong to implement Gong, the Gong adoption was incredible. Starting from my VP of sales who loved the Gong app. This is a guy who still was using like Windows 95. No, seriously. He had like an iPhone 4. And I'm like, what? Well, I love this. But there was a process and people had a habit. The most difficult thing to get your sales leaders and your sellers is to get the habit. So map all this. Do it scrappy. Do it with Excel sheets and do it in Google Drive or do it with Word or do it with Outreach. It's going to be very, very scrappy, but do it because this is the way you are going to build it. And then iterate. What can you do differently in the process? What is the proof that you're getting? Again, go back to the teams and ask them, would you do this every week? What would happen if I give you something to make it better? Case in point, you can use a bicycle to go to work every day, and you will get to work. You will get in sweaty. Maybe it will take you a little bit longer. You will have to maneuver through traffic, but you get to work. So we asked that same person, what if I give you a car? Would that make you more efficient? It's exactly the same question here. So think about this from that perspective because it is the way to actually make your technology stick. But understand where is the gain? Because there's one thing that you might realize when you do this, that you don't need tech. And this is a possibility. When everybody thought that you need a specific tech stack for this, maybe the answer is, for this process, we do not need it. Because if we leave this process as is, we're okay and we do not see any gain. Maybe because the tech that's out there is not ready. Maybe because it's going to make us slower. But also because you're looking for that efficiency gain in not the entire process. One tool is not going to solve every problem. Hey, SAP and Oracle tried to do that in 2000s with the ERPs. It did not solve every problem. It solved it for a while, but we all saw the gaps. So after the ERP era came the best of breed era, and here we are, again, trying to consolidate vendors. But we need to understand that one tool is going to solve one part of the process very well, and the other ones might not get the entire automation that you need. Think about this because when I see these lists, of people that come and say, this is my list of features that I need this product to do, I'm like, wow, this is like me asking for like my dream vacation, I want to go in a pod to like Dubai. I told my husband I want to go in one of those that you actually sleep in a bed. My husband said, great, that's wonderful for you, but we might be going in coach. Great, but I get there. So think about that in the same perspective. Will this get you there? Will this make your process more efficient? So, when you use these results and you see the gain, there's three main important things that you need to ask. Did it make it more efficient? Did it make it faster? And do I really gain something from making it automated? Let's go back to the lead management tool. You have a lot of gain by automating a lot of the BDR processes because it's tedious, because it takes away time. But one thing I discovered once? It also made the BDRs very lazy. Right? I see a lot of heads nodding. Because then the salesperson says, oh, the tool is doing it for me. I don't even have to go in and do anything. I actually discovered that if I gave them a tool that was not that sophisticated, they would do a better job. So where was my gain in the process? If I didn't need to automate everything that they were doing, I just need to give them a little bit of efficiency. Let's talk about all these, when you see the emails, they're already written for you, and all these things are already done for you. Is it really necessary? Do we really think that they need automation in that? No, come on, we're talking again. That's doing your job, right? Very important that we take a step back and we do this, because you need to look for that solution that solves the most critical part of your process. And that process can be from that lead generation or even from marketing. If we think about Ben's model about revenue ops and all that, let's think about the entire flow, even to customer success, because that is a very important part of revenue. Is this helping in any way, all of this, or is it not? Will us introducing this make them more efficient, or am I putting a little stone in their shoe? So the story of this little enabler that was really, really overwhelmed, this enabler said, you know what, I'm going to follow this. I'm going to make my process an analog. I'm going to realize where my gains is, and I am going to have two abilities. I'm going to come with very strong data to my leaders and to all those managers and my CMO and my CRO and tell them we do not need this because this is what I found out. Just the same way we've all been talking about when we come with measurements, this is another form of measurement. And these are the tools that I recommend and why. So when you are also not only talking internally, but when you're looking at demos, when you're looking at, you're speaking with your tech stack companies, also you have more questions to ask them. You become more active in the process. And you don't go with a laundry list that unfortunately they're not going to be able to satisfy because it does not exist. The perfect tech tool does not exist. Each one will help you address one part of the problem. So this was brief and fast because not only I know you guys are hungry, but because I wanted to leave some space for questions. But thank you so much for listening to me today throughout the day. And I just wanted to, share a couple of things. I know that we will share these slides. I have a couple of resources that I want to share with you. I have a beautiful sales enabler playbook. Yesterday, somebody was referencing, if any of you followed last year, I conducted a summer school when we were with Level Jump. This playbook has many of those elements, just rebranded. It went some great Salesforce best practices behind it. There is an article that we talk about some other studies and references to enablement. And as always, super happy to connect via LinkedIn or email, always available. So thank you so much. Question? I love it. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then find it, because you're going to invest, I would say, it's going to be more efficient for your investment of time doing it before than trying to convince people to use the tool after. That one is such a high mountain to climb on, right? Thank you. Thank you. Any other question, comments, relatable stories, anything? No? Wow, you guys are really hungry. Vanessa, yes, my girl. That's a great question. It's that's kind of like part of the challenge is to bring it, but I think again it goes back to social proof. You know, testing, I did this and this was the result and this is what I did. And also make them part of your process while you're doing this. Especially if you have an IT or a technology department that's very invested on what the company is using and that they need to be part of it. I had that at Clearbank, for example. There was a tech part that was like we didn't have informal IT department, but we had people that managed technology. They sat under RevOps, and we would do this together. Just like the same way we would do, should we do it this way, or what are we evaluating on our tools? Because that's the other part, right? We shared about this yesterday. Sometimes you come to a point where you have a tool that everybody loves. And I had a tool in Clearbank that we all loved, we used. It was a video tool. But one day we sat down and we said, are we really getting the money out of this tool? And we sat down and did the reverse that I just said, but kind of going to the conversion rate of what the tool and how much it cost. And we realized that we were using it a lot, but we were not getting the conversion rate we needed. Right? So that's a very important one. Yes. Oh yeah. To be honest, it's a tough conversation, but you have to be straightforward with them. And I've had that case before of, oh my God, you guys I want to use that dialer, or I want to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator too. Or that would be so cool for us to use it. That's amazing. Look, this is the cost of the tool. This is how we use it. This is the efficiency gain. What are you looking to? What's the problem you're looking to solve? If you kind of go with the same framework and the same mindset, they need to like match this and kind of go in and say, oh yeah, it's not because it's cool. Like, I mean, if you have cool money to spend, great. That would be awesome. But exactly, right? So it's kind of like navigating them through this same type of framework and getting them into the same mindset. It's going to help them too. It's like going through a discovery call and asking why. Right? Yes. I know. Here. There you go. Sorry. No. Yes. I would say they're separate, but it all depends again. If they're going to earn knowledge, but does that increase them one step more in the process? Like, does that kind of increase in knowledge make up for taking an extra step, for example? Like, if I add them, I remember there was a tool that allowed you to go in and understand, I think it was called Crystal Knows. I don't know if it still is around and all that. It's really cool. But will them going into that rabbit hole help them increase efficiency? And does that really help them when they write the email or do the call? Or is that just sending them through a rabbit hole of, do they need to know that or not? So it's kind of like a fine balance of what does the team need to know for them to do their work. Because another thing that happens is sometimes sellers just want to know more because they're naturally curious, but is knowing more helping them or not? Right? I remember very much having these conversations with, especially between BDRs and AEs. Like, how much does the BDR know and how much should the AE know? Because sometimes the BDR would try to do like a discovery call instead of doing a cold call. Or they would try to get very sophisticated. And I'm like, this is great if you would be doing this part of the process. But if you're not, is it helping you? That would be the ideal. Yes, it's like if you can kind of pair them, but you always have to kind of make that ask. Will this throw them into a rabbit hole, or is this really helping them? Yes, thank you. Anybody else, or are we ready to eat? We're ready to eat? Let's do it. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. See you after lunch.